Welcome, friends, to Montessori 101, a live show from Child of the Redwoods, all about the magic of Montessori. We believe that every child deserves a Montessori education. I'm Aubrey Hargis.
I'm David Hargis. So whether you're watching us live, welcome. So nice to see you in the audience, or you're watching the replay, or maybe you're just listening to this as a podcast. Doesn't matter. We're just really happy you're here with us. And if you don't know what we're all about, then you can head over to our website, childoftheredwoods.com, and read all about us.
So today we are doing our next installment in the Montessori Essentials series, and we are going to be talking about the grammar symbols, the Montessori grammar symbols. So if you're curious to learn about those, you're going to love this little episode. You may have a set of grammar symbols at home. You may not, but I think after this, you're going to want to make a set if you don't have one already, because they're really, really cool. They are one of our Montessori 21 essentials for implementing the Montessori method at home with your own child. And if you want to know the whole entire essentials list, you can head over to Child of the Redwoods and go to childoftheredwoods.com/essentials. And you'll be able to download a free list of all 21 of our essentials.
That's right. And I don't know where we are in the list. We're probably halfway or just about. So if you've been watching along or you missed any of the ones on the list, we're going to eventually cover all 21 of those between now and I think through the late summer is what we're projecting. So tune in for all of that. Go get your list. And we're happy to have you here. We know there's a lot more of you than there were. And we're so excited to have so many folks here. All right. Let's go into the topic at hand, which is the symbols, these grammar symbols. So if you're like me, you probably don't know a lot about the grammar symbols outside of Montessori, any education you might have done around Montessori. I didn't. When I first became aware of the grammar symbols, it's when we were researching to build the lower elementary curriculum several years ago. Of course, I have a master's in literature, so I studied language and have taken linguistics and worked at the Grammar Center. That's actually where you and I met.
Yeah, we actually met through grammar.
We did. We met through grammar, but I didn't know
through our mutual love of grammar.
That's right, or something.
And writing.
Our mutual need for work as students back in college. But the truth is, I didn't know anything about the grammar curriculum, the Montessori grammar curriculum, until I started working through the material with Aubrey. And it is phenomenal. And the symbols are just one little piece of that, but it's the essential piece we wanted to talk about today. So what are they? If you don't know, I'm going to show you a homemade version. You can buy professional versions. You can make them out of paper. If you're in Constellation, we give out a set anytime we have a grammar activity, just so you can cut them out, because they're somewhat specially, but they're really simple. And that's just why they're so brilliant. Okay, so they're a set of colorful shapes. So here's an example. Here's a different one. I'm going to talk about these in just a second. Okay,
I'll hold some up for you.
Yeah. Okay, and they're really, really neat, right? So they're in the same way that the golden beads or the colored beads are an essential tool for mathematics. These grammar symbols are a great tool for teaching and getting into the grammar curriculum. And you could just do all kinds of fun stuff with it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's do a quick little overview. Okay, so there are 4 triangles, okay? And this one is black. You can't see it on my Let's Go Giants shirt. Yes, it's Giants.
Yeah, and to those of you who are wondering, these are the first set of grammar symbols that I made.
Yeah.
And I have been in love with them pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
Growing up in Montessori. I mean, they you usually see them in a Montessori classroom on a shelf in 3D version first.
That's right.
So we're holding up the little 2D version.
And they're cut out of foam core type or something.
Yeah, I went to the hobby store and I just cut them out of that little foam sheets that you can buy, one of every color for the materials. And then I just hand drew them, actually, so they're not exact at all. If you were looking for perfect measurements, you're not going to find them here.
That's right.
And it's fine. It's okay. It's the symbols that are the important
thing.
So
what are these symbols? So this one is a black triangle. It's the largest of the triangles, and it means noun. So this would represent noun. Let's see. Here is a slightly smaller triangle, and it's dark blue, and it represents an adjective. And this is an even smaller and lighter blue triangle, and it represents an article.
Right. And an article is like the or a. So
and the.
to kind of go over that, nouns are people,
Place.
places, and things.
Yeah.
You probably remember that from grade school.
Right. Cat.
And then adjectives would be describing the nouns. So something like beautiful,
beautiful
or blue, right?
The blue cat.
The beautiful blue cat. Right.
The furry cat, I was thinking.
The furry cat.
And here's the. So
and
the.
Yeah. So the or
furry
a. So
cat or a furry cat.
A furry cat or the furry cat.
That's right.
And that.
And one more triangle.
Yes,
actually,
one more triangle.
Which is the pronoun. And it's a purple triangle. It's about the same height as the noun, but it's skinnier. So you can see that's one way it's different. Now, what's cool about these is that they are all triangles. Why are they all triangles?
They're all triangles because they're members of the noun family. So what's really cool is that when you're working with these with kids, you will teach them you'll teach them the noun first, of course. You'll teach them the noun first, and you'll kind of list your nouns, and then you'll add on the adjectives, to them. Pink,
happy cat, sleepy cat,
and then you'll add your article onto it, right?
The furry cat,
right? The furry cat or a furry cat. And then you can also talk about how the pronoun replaces the noun. So instead of cat, you might say she, or it, or they. So the pronouns are really nice as a visual. To
That's right.
Actually, you can see how you can take the black noun away and replace it with a pronoun,
which is a very slight. It's
right?
a different triangle. But not radically different, because what we want to create in the child's mind is an association, right? These are all parts of the noun family. And so that's really cool right there. It's a symbolic language that we're introducing. Now, it's not just the triangles. There's a bunch of other symbols, but today we also want to introduce two other kinds of symbols that are similar, and they are circles or spheres. And one is a red sphere. This is a verb.
Or circle in 2D version.
That's right. If it would be like a little ball, if you had the nice 3D
version.
Yeah, it's just a circle here. And then an adverb, which is orange, my favorite color, orange. And it's slightly smaller in the same way that the noun is bigger than the adjective. Let's see, where's my adjective?
Nope. It's the dark blue.
There we go. Yeah, so you can see they're bigger and smaller. So noun and the modifier for the noun, and the verb and the modifier for the verb. Yeah, but these are
some verb examples might be.
And it's an action, right? So
jump,
sit, sleep, eat, go live.
And then we add an adverb to it.
That's
and
right.
We could make the verb phrase
eat quickly.
Jump excitedly.
So then you get into a situation where you have
an article.
The cat sat.
The cat sat peacefully.
The cat sat peacefully. Or the furry cat
jumped
lazily.
Right. So you can put them together to make sentences. And you're probably noticing what we've got here is, if you remember from grammar in grade school or middle school, usually for most of us, you're probably remembering like the subject and the predicate. And so our noun family, being that they're all like these triangles, it's already a setup to visually cue the child in to like, this part is similar and kind of these things
adjectives
go together.
Modify nouns, they're triangles. Adverbs modify verbs, they're circles. Then we have a couple other shapes, or three others that we wanted to show you that are not they're neither triangles nor circles, but this first one is really cool. It's my favorite.
It's my favorite too.
It's the gold pyramid. It's interjection.
It's It's a gold pyramid with like a circle on the top.
And
right?
if you hold that real quick.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you notice here?
Yeah.
And this is
And-
intentional, is that the pyramid, it's the triangle and the circle together.
Mhm.
And that's because the interjection combines qualities of a noun and a verb.
Yep.
Yikes!
Yikes.
The lazy cat jumped.
Oopsie doodle.
Oopsie doodle. 2 interjections. Why not?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
The triangles are tiny. No, wrong one.
No, wrong one.
Here we go. Tiny. No, that's wrong.
Adjective.
Tiny.
All right, so this is wonderful because it's kind of in the shape of a keyhole.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, it's like you're looking through to see your sentence through a different perspective or different point of view. It's really fun.
And that is the point. They are really fun. So they're colorful. And you saw us kind of playing around looking for like a game, right? Like, oh, wait, I got to find the symbol for noun. I got to find the symbol for adjective. There's a game-like quality to it that's really, really fun, even for adults, and super fun for kids too. Okay, last 2 that we were going to show you. We have one. It's a preposition. It kind of looks like a crescent. We think of it as a bridge because it's a bridge. It's like a bridge over a river or something that's connecting 2 things. In this case, 2 words. So a preposition would be of, on, under. We used to say
into.
Yeah. Like, yeah, we used to, when we taught grammar, the kind of the cheat would be, it's like blank the table. So like on the table, under the table, with the table, by the table.
You can do that. Usually, in Montessori, we would teach it with the bridge too, right? So you can go under the bridge or, sorry. Or you can go over the bridge or you can go around the bridge.
This is why you need a whole box of them. Here we go. No, we'll find that one.
All right.
Yeah. So bridge, right. With the bridge, under the bridge. So the cat, you can imagine the triangles, the cat sat,
there we go.
Verb, under the table. So, and that's another reason why you want to have a bunch of them, because you're going to start writing sentences with these different symbols. And you can write any sentence. I mean, that's the thing that's so beautiful about it. And the last one here that we wanted to introduce is conjunction. And it kind of looks like a hyphen. It's a pink rectangle. And so that would be like and. So the cat sat and the cat napped. And this would be the and, right? So a conjunction is a part of speech that connects 2 independent clauses.
We actually had a really nice activity in our constellation packets recently where we did a conjunction activity. Do you remember which one?
No.
It was in Adorn. So those of you who were in constellation, you remember our theme of Adorn. Oh, you have it here. Yeah. Awesome. Can you flip through and maybe find the conjunction activity? That would be super cool. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we did. We actually took some, I don't know if you can tell this on here, but it's actually pink. So we took some pink ribbon and we combined.
Was this it?
No,
you don't want to see the
extension. Yeah. Okay. We did an activity that was about clothing.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah. See if you can find that one. Yeah. So we actually took a pink ribbon or, long piece of pink paper, something to kind of symbolize the conjunction. And we wrapped it around 2 pieces of clothing to decide what we were going to wear that day. So the child would pick out a purple shirt and the and would be the conjunction, and blue pants. And then we would actually take that pink ribbon.
Outfit conjunctions.
And outfit conjunctions. Yeah. Exactly. And you would like wrap them around the pink shirt and the blue pants together physically to represent the learning the symbol of the conjunction. So that was something super cool that we did.
Yeah. And that it's what's cool about it, and try that at home, is that it speaks exactly to why these symbols and the whole of the grammar curriculum in Montessori is so amazing. It's making concrete something that can be very, very abstract. And so using the pink ribbon to tie things together creates a memory in the child's mind that helps them understand, conjunctions connect things. Just like a bridge shape you can do things to the bridge. You can be on the bridge, under the bridge, by the bridge, right? So these things are pretty cool. They have within them symbolic language. Um, I've never seen anything like them outside of Montessori. The closest thing I can think of is, yeah, I don't know if they still use them, but you remember when you would edit papers, you would use little carrots or underlines or
Sure. I mean,
things to sort of symbolize edits. But in terms
those
of
are
like,
for editing, but
right, I can't think of anything quite like it.
no, in most traditional education classrooms, the way grammar is taught is just like by taking some text and then like circling the verbs or underlining the nouns. Do you remember doing all those
Oh, yeah.
worksheets in school?
Sure.
It would have a direction like, now circle all the nouns.
Circle all the nouns in
There are
red.
4, and then you'd have to find the 4 and circle them. And then in the next one would say, now put 2 underlines under the conjunction, and you would put 2 underlines. And, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact,
No.
in Montessori, we might consider that as an extension.
Yeah.
What we usually would do is we would have the kids pull it from a meaningful text. So like say your elementary child, like maybe you've been reading to them The Mouse and the Motorcycle or Charlotte's Web or something, right? So you would actually pull Charlotte's Web and you would find a little paragraph in there, and then you would read that paragraph to your child, and you and your child would look at that paragraph together in elementary, not really necessarily in primary, but elementary. And then you might circle or highlight or just point to the verbs that are in the real text. But the way we learned grammar in our public school experiences, and that's like after my Montessori experience, I was in public school, and this is the way we learned them, was we were just told, okay, these things are nouns. You have to memorize what a noun is, and now circle all the nouns on this worksheet. And we just did hundreds of those worksheets.
That's right.
It was so boring.
A noun is a person, place, or thing.
Right. But
circle them
it just wasn't meaningful. And so, maybe your child has learned to memorize what a preposition is to know it, for a test, but it doesn't actually make a meaningful connection to you. But when you study a preposition and you actually do all these fun Montessori lessons with it, which are really interactive and playful, like the conjunction lesson that we talked about, or like actually making a bridge and jumping over it and going under it, like actually doing those things and using these symbols, it really commits it to your memory, and it just makes it so much more significant. So it's not, and really, we were talking about the core of the Montessori approach is the opposite of the approach you would take to have children just memorize something to do well on a test.
Yeah, now to be clear, you have to practice, right? So how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. So there can be there is a purpose to doing problem sets. There's a purpose to practicing on, like, with sentences and parsing the sentences.
Sure.
The problem is we often skip or put too little emphasis on the front part, which would be introducing a symbolic language and then teaching the concept behind it. In Montessori, I think you're going to mention this a little bit later, but we have the great lessons, right? And one of the great lessons is on language, the development of language. And this is something that you would teach in the lower elementary curriculum. And part of what we're teaching with that is it goes from how language went from a symbol, like a picture of an ox, to eventually phonetic, and then beyond to, let's say, in English, the modern English alphabet. Right. And how this developed over the course of many, many thousands of years, and how it came from. And at the end of the day, this thing being a noun, this big black triangle being a noun, is just a symbol, in the same way that the collection of letters CAT is a symbol that represents a thing.
Well, it's actually really, it's interesting because our letters that we have that represent the sound. So you have a letter A that represents the sound ah, right? But we don't really have a symbol that we have developed that we use in our everyday that means like a specific word, right? It's just the word itself or the type of word.
Right.
And that was what Maria Montessori created. So just as like we have the symbol letter A that means ah, we have this symbol that means this kind of word.
This part of speech, as you
Mhm.
would say. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, not all languages work that way, but, Maria was Italian. We speak English here. So they're all sort of Romance languages or derivative some of Greco-Roman languages, and just
Germanic.
Germanic, right? And we all share the same alphabet, or more or less, and so that works the same way, and that's why it's really powerful. I'm not sure how if you used how it would work with a language that was um, not phonetic, a non-phonetic language, like
The
something.
grammar symbols, or
Yeah, because I wonder if they're already symbolic. There's a symbol already, and so part of what these are doing is translating a sound and a concept into a symbol of a
they're not.
different kind.
It's not translating a sound,
That's true.
but
You're
it
right.
is translating a concept. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's pretty universal.
Try it out. You guys out there, find some languages that you'd like to try these symbols on, and let
Yeah.
us know how it
Let us
works.
know. Yes.
All right. So these are a tool for learning grammar, right? That's the kind of the point. And the whole grammar curriculum is super amazing, right? It's just one of those unsung heroes, I think, of the curriculum itself. I like I said earlier, I didn't really know a lot about. In fact, I didn't think at all about a Montessori grammar curriculum until I started to dig into it. It's not one of the things that you really, I think, commonly understand. It's such a shame because it's so powerful. It's so darn clever, and it treats language in is something different. It's than just the reading and writing. So we don't lump it into reading and writing, right? When we have our 10 curriculum areas, grammar is a separate subject area from reading and writing. Now, they're obviously cousins, right? Reading, writing, and grammar go together, but we treat reading and writing separately because I would say, it's about the expression and the poetics, the use of language to evoke or to teach or to present. And what I think is beautiful about the way that the Montessori approaches grammar, is that it's about kind of the mechanics or the atoms. It's like if we were to look at the atomic structure of language and understand that atomic structure, this is a way we might look at it. And these symbols are just a part of that. Um, but they're an essential part. And, we might call that like linguistics or something. But the idea is really powerful. And the better you get at parsing the atomic structure, the more meaning you're going to derive from the artful language, and vice versa. The more knowledge you have about how their atomic structure beneath something, the more the world of poetry and prose opens up. Because especially when you read something very, very beautifully written, like Shakespeare or some great poetry, you begin to see how clever the use of language is, and very, very clever writers will play with language in really fun ways. And the more you can understand that the language itself is made up of atoms, and like kind of conceptualize it in that way, the more I think you can begin to appreciate it. So what I love about the curriculum is that you have these two. We're not giving the short end of the stick to grammar. We're treating it as a special thing, and through that, it really builds and enhances.
Well, so, if you think about the way we teach language in Montessori, starting with our toddler years, we introduce language to them purely orally.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
So
right.
we're still teaching a lot of these concepts. It's just oral. We're developing their ears. And what are they listening to? They're listening to the individual sounds within words. They're listening to they're acquiring vocabulary,
Mhm.
and they're starting to understand the relationship between
Mhm.
just how people talk in the world, like conversation. They're
Yeah.
learning about what kinds of words describe
Mhm.
physical objects. They're learning about what kinds of things we say to each other when introducing ourselves, or in social contexts. And it's all auditory, so they're just listening at that point.
Mhm.
When they get into primary, they start to analyze language a little bit more,
Mhm. Yep.
and they are breaking apart words into sounds, and they're still like listening for the sounds, and they start associating it with a symbol.
Hmm.
But once they have some of that grounding in and they can really associate, like maybe they know a lot of the letters, of the alphabet, they can associate with those with sounds, they're starting to blend words together, then you can start to analyze words.
Yeah.
And so it's like this beautiful progression
That's right.
from listening and kind of expressing yourself to starting to pick apart at the letters, in that micro scale. And then the deeper we get,
Yeah.
the more we can like start to pick words apart. And so by the time we get to lower elementary, grammar actually includes several parts,
That's
right?
right.
It includes the parts of speech
Yep.
like this, but it
That's right.
also includes what we call word study. So we're
Yeah.
studying the words
Little
themselves and then
Latin
studying the
words
sentences at
and
the sentence level.
Yep.
And all of this is really important for developing strong reading skills,
yeah.
which I think was ignored in a lot of reading programs earlier and is now starting to be recognized. But it's been in the Montessori curriculum all along.
Yeah, there's a lot of news about the sort of a reinvestment in language learning and reading and literacy specifically, and I think they're rediscovering a lot of these techniques. So,
Yeah.
speaking of which, what are some of the ways that you might use these symbols with actual kids? And how old would you introduce? Like, let's start with there. At what age would you introduce the grammar symbols?
Well, I mean, in many primary classrooms actually do have grammar symbols on the shelf, and we would start grammar usually with like a farm setup, so it can start in primary. I usually like to keep it really oral, just without the symbols until children are towards the later end of primary when they're really starting to be able to think a little bit more abstractly. So about at the time that we'd be introducing the golden beads and kind of working through some of the more concrete to abstract things in math. Like by the time your child is using the golden beads to start with addition and multiplication, subtraction, and division, you might also start to introduce some of these grammar symbols. But they really come into their most beautiful form, I think, in our elementary years. So like that last year in primary, like that kindergarten year, first grade is when children feel confident enough, usually with their reading, like usually they have kind of had that explosion into reading and writing, and they become more interested in words themselves and picking apart words.
That's right.
And so that's when we really just dive super deep into grammar. But as the members of our communities know, like it's not too early to start doing some grammar activities. And if your child is a little on the young side, it's still great for them to do these activities orally. You just won't be adding in like the writing part either at a lower elementary.
Yeah, and so we've talked about this before. Just to underscore, you're not going to break your child. The child is like a cup, right? It will hold as much as it can in terms of knowledge. So if you introduce this information to them and at a younger age, before let's say they've kind of made that journey to abstraction, when it's going to come alive and they just don't seem to be clicking with it, that's a-okay. You didn't hurt anything by showing it to them, and you might have planted a seed. And especially if you have multi-age at home, where you've got an older child who is really getting into the grammar symbols or grammar study, and a younger child who isn't quite there yet but wants to do whatever big sister is doing, no problem. They can both be together in that. What matters is for you, the teacher, the parent teacher, to set your expectations correctly.
Yep. All right, let's talk about some actual lessons that you might give.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, friends, the grammar curriculum is huge in Montessori. Like it's really, really big. There's no way we could give you all of the lessons, for grammar in this one little session. So I'm just going to pick a few that I think are kind of basic and really great. You could try them out at home with your child, really of any age. So what we do first when we're giving a grammar lesson, and we're going to incorporate these symbols, is we would start with something that involves a lot of movement and introduces that concept even before we introduce the symbols. So like even with your toddlers, you want to introduce, say, a verb, you're going to be inviting them to do a lot of movement. They're jumping, they're running, they're cutting with scissors, they're playing, they're dancing, they're skipping, all those sorts of things. And so you might be giving them like little fun pantomime type of charades commands, to do, even before they can read yet, even before they're even aware of the verb symbol at all. For nouns, you might go around the house, you might name things, so instead of introducing the symbol at first, you might just say, everything has a name. Let's name everything. This is a cup. This is a clock. And you just go around naming the things that you see. And maybe you keep a little list of all the things that you can name or the names of things. And then let's write down all the names of the people in our family, right? So, and then later when you introduce the symbol, then your child will understand like everything has a name, and this is the symbol for anything that has a name. It's a noun. That means it's a name of something. And in Montessori, we have lots of stories that we tell and associations that we give children, especially, as they are closer to the later primary years, the beginning of lower elementary. We have stories that we like to tell, about the noun. So, for example, we might talk about the shape, which in 3D version would look like a pyramid. So we might talk about what is a pyramid and show some pictures of pyramids and talk about the ancient Egyptians, how they were made. They were made out of stone, and they've lasted for so long, thousands of years. They've been around and they're still there. You can still go see them. And we also might brainstorm about why this color was chosen. So we might say, this is the color black, and what does it remind us of? And if your child is in the lower elementary Montessori curriculum, they have probably already learned the very first great lesson that we would teach, which is the coming of the universe. So if you think, what is the dawn of time? Where did things all begin? It was dark. It was dark in our universe,
right.
as far as we can dream and kind of assume, right? We assume it was dark. That's what our scientists believe.
In the beginning.
In the very beginning, there was darkness, right? It was so dark. It was black. And your elementary child might even remember when you took your family into the closet and you closed the closet door and it was so dark. And you talked about the very origin of the universe, the very beginning of time itself. And then what happens? Some lights, there's some energy, some sparkles. And so a lot of Montessori teachers will turn on a flashlight, or you'll turn on the light, or a lamp or something to illuminate the world and signify the energy, that's rushing out from the great darkness. And so that is like a symbol of ancientness. And, the noun itself, the names of things were probably the first words that humans came up with, back before we could talk, we were just pointing at things.
Yeah.
And then when we learned speech, we learned to associate like a word, a name of something, to communicate an idea, like the poison berry bush, is right there, or tiger, or, just the names of things that were super relevant.
Yeah, you could imagine
even like
people emoting
water is
for the
over
verb,
here.
right? They didn't have the verb. I'm just, who knows? We're all speculating here because we know what was around. But,
right.
You could imagine like water, or something like, meaning like don't drink the water, it's poisonous or something.
Right.
Or, berries, like, so you have even just thinking about how animals communicate and gesticulate and so forth, you can imagine that over time they might have created nouns first, or they might have had the names of things before they had the complex constructions
for prepositions or adjectives,
or maybe verbs and things. Who knows?
Yeah. So the shape and the color kind of represent that, and we would make that association with the child. We would do this brainstorming with them. What does the black color make you think of, and why do you think it was chosen to be the symbol of the noun? And we would kind of brainstorm and come up with this together with the child. But these are some things that Montessori teachers know, that are actually written up in lessons in our lower elementary curriculum.
That's right.
And then if we're talking about the verb, we've already talked about some movement that you might be doing with your child before you introduce the symbol. But it's also really exciting, right? When you think about, what does the color red signify to you? So we often use it as a symbol of love,
Definitely.
Which is something that we can do or feel, right? We can think about, most kids would probably think about if they were to see a red sphere in 3D version, it just looks like a ball to most kids. So, what do they want to do with it? They want to like roll it around and play with it, and talk about how a red ball would bounce, or what else does it do?
Roll,
Spins.
spin,
Yeah. So
hop,
lots of active
squish.
things. And then if we go big and think into like our deep, big history again about like if the blackness represents the greatness of the history of time and the dawning of the universe, this might represent the sun and, the action, the light, the energy that comes forth and still affects us.
That's
so
right.
It's,
and in English, those are the two components that are necessary
to make a sentence.
To make sentence, you need
right. Yeah, you need both.
You need a noun and a verb. And if you have a noun,
darkness and the light.
if you have a noun and a verb, you have a whole sentence. And so symbolically, you can even teach kids that concept.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm also thinking when I think about the sun, and the noun. Another analogy that we have for these, or metaphor we use, is we often talk to the children about coal, which they would be thinking of during their second grade lesson, which is the timeline of life. So we often talk about like, where did our fossil fuels come from? Well, they come from the age of the dinosaurs, and the plants that decompose. That's where we get the coal that we would burn today that is causing a great problem in our current world. But, so it feels very relevant to talk about these things. But coal is ancient. It came from a time when there weren't even humans around.
Totally.
It was under the ground cooking, cooking by the sun, the sun's warmth and the warmth of the earth. So, that's also something kind of interesting. Yeah. And Maria Montessori pulled these things because they were relevant to her children. She didn't just think of them because they were interesting to her personally. Her children, she was a huge advocate of the circadian rhythm. So she believed that children should wake when the sun rises and go to sleep when it sets. And even though we kind of generally do that today, our modern life is a little bit different, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. We've done just about all we can to conquer nature, to good or ill, I suppose.
Yes.
So yeah, right. I was up till 1:00 last night working.
Yeah.
Because of the miracle of modern science, electric lights and things like that. But our ancestors, not that far back ancestors either, would have gone to bed.
Yep.
Because it would have been firelight or maybe gaslight. Maybe very early light bulbs if you lived in a city 100 and something years ago, but it's like relatively new, right? And so the transformation it had on our society is just so huge. And you could think about like, what does that sun represent, and the heat and how tied to it we are, because it doesn't take us very long. Think about when the power goes out. We had a power outage here in the city a couple of weeks ago because we've been having all that bad weather, and just almost immediately it felt like you fall into this different rhythm. Like it's almost like your ancestral voices are coming out like, oh, it's dark.
It's dark.
I can't cook. I can't really even read. It's too dark to do any of those things. I'm going to go to bed.
Might as well go to sleep.
Or I'm going to tell a story, or you're going to sit around and talk or sing or something, right? Things that we can do with our own bodies and self. And so, yeah, for sure. She lived in a time of electrification when it was easier to imagine life without electricity.
Yeah. So, also I'm thinking about agriculture and, how many factory farms there are these days, and as opposed to during Maria's time where there would have been a lot more humans involved in, the
mechanization was coming, but it wasn't there yet. Yep. Certainly not like it is today.
Yeah. And coal, I'm thinking children would have likely have known what coal looked like back then.
Yep.
We kind of have this, I've never known any child to actually get coal in their stocking. It's kind of like an old myth, but I think they actually did it or do it, in some cultures.
I think that's right. I think,
Yeah, to like put actual coal in a child's stocking for
but,
Christmas.
yeah, for us here in,
Or maybe children would have seen like workers shoveling coal, it would have
yeah, I
been
mean,
felt relevant.
or they might have heated their homes with coal, a coal
Mhm.
burning
Yeah.
furnace, or the school might have been
And
run.
and today it's still it's still possible, to see and interact with
It's
coal, but it's
super
not as
rare.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a treat if you're into, I remember, kind of into, I was always sort of into trains. And when years ago, we went to this little amusement park. It's called Knoebels. It's in Pennsylvania. It's a classic. It's beautiful, beautiful, neat place. And they have a train, a little mini train, like you can ride on. But this one was actually powered by coal. They actually shoveled little bits of coal into and to generate the steam that moved the train. And I was just fascinated. I was a grown person by
Mhm.
this point, well grown, and had ridden a million little tiny trains. But it was so cool because it was like, wow, this is how it used to be. So many of our stories and just sort of in our imagination, the idea of coal and fired engines.
One of
And it's
the
so kind of abstract and rare to us now,
yeah.
but it's still so amazing. Like you're going to put a lump of coal into a box, and it's going to get real hot, and then it's going
Mhm.
to somehow turn things. We went and saw the re-release of
That's what
Titanic,
I was gonna say. Yes.
and our youngest, he and I were talking, and he was like, "There's a scene in it where it shows the people down in the boiler room shoveling the coal." He's like,
Not just a few people, but like
dozens and
dozens
dozens
of
of people
people
with machines
all
that are
shoveling
gigantic.
this super hot coal
And he was
into
like, "Is that
these.
real?" And I was like, "Yes, that's how it actually worked before." So you could imagine, Maria coming from that time and thinking and seeing it. But even today, even when we're so far away, and you're like, I saw this toy train and I wrote it, and actually it's cool. What an amazing thing! Or I saw this movie and they used computers to recreate something that was really true. It still captivates. It's still
Mhm.
really amazing. And I think that's why there's the symbolic language that you find in these symbols persist.
Yeah. It's so cool. So, to kind of sum us up here, go get yourself some grammar symbols or make them. They're so cool. They are lasting. I think even if you have a little toddler at home, it's worth making a set now
Mhm.
so that you will have them to refer to because they are so cool. Even if your children don't continue in Montessori through elementary at home, even if they go to a school, they will definitely be learning nouns and verbs and stuff. And this is such a special way to teach. And you could do this at home too to reinforce their learning, even if you're not full-time
That's
homeschooling.
right. I just realized I
Yeah.
think I showed this upside down originally, but it's still a triangle and a circle.
You
But
don't know.
no, I think I put it wrong. Right. But I think I had it the other way. The important thing is,
No, it goes this way.
okay. So the important thing is go make some. Like these are homemade. They're so fun. And, or just even draw them on the paper itself. You're not going to get the dimensions perfect. You might not even remember which direction some of them were supposed to go.
It
Although
doesn't matter.
for
Yeah.
some, it's easier to remember which way it's supposed to go than others. It doesn't matter. Is your noun bigger than your adjective? Is your adjective bigger than your article in a relative way? Are they in slightly different? Is this a lighter blue and a darker blue and a black? You're close enough, and you're just going to unlock this symbolic language. Can you just imagine? It's so much fun. You can write whole sentences, whole books. You could write whole sentences or books with just symbols without even having the words there. And then you can go around having fun saying, this, the what, right? Or blank, blank, a cat, the flower. And it's just so amazing. And it doesn't really take anything. They're good out of paper. They're good out of foam core.
Yep.
Go do it. Do it.
All right, friends, we're gonna stop for today.
Definitely.
But we welcome you to email us anytime at hello@childoftheredwoods.com. We would love it if you would like and subscribe. It really helps our channel to be seen by other people who want to learn about Montessori.
Yep.
And otherwise, we'll see you next week
We will see
at
you
1
next week.
o'clock on a Tuesday. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.